You're not going to believe what I came home to last weekend. I had just bought my dream car, a matte black Mustang GT, fully customized. I'd waited years for this moment, and then, while I was out of town for just 48 hours, my nightmare began. So I live in this relatively quiet neighborhood, nice houses, trimmed lawns, the usual. But we've got this one neighbor. Let's call her Karen. She's the self-declared president of our HOA, even though no one really voted for her. She has a clipboard, a megaphone, and the personality of a lawnmower that only works in reverse. Basically, if something isn't exactly the way she wants it, she throws a fit. I left town on Friday morning to visit my sister in another city. Everything was peaceful. My car? Parked in my own driveway, completely spotless. Security cams were running. I even left a note on my door for deliveries. Harmless, right? But then Saturday afternoon, something weird happened. Karen was seen standing in front of my driveway, hands on her hips, talking on her phone and pointing at my car. Then she disappears off screen. A few minutes later, she comes back with a wheelbarrow, and it's full of wet brown mud. She starts shoveling mud onto my car. At first just the hood, then the windshield. Then she climbs on the hood and starts dumping it across the roof, like she's planting potatoes or something. I'm 200 miles away when I get a motion alert from my camera. I open the app, and I just froze. My brand new Mustang is now a giant, dripping pile of mud lasagna, thanks to HOA Karen. But it gets weirder. So, at this point, I'm on the phone with local police, still staring at my phone in disbelief. The dispatcher asks me, "Are you sure she's putting mud on your car?" And I'm like, "Ma'am, it's Karen. I'm not surprised she hasn't planted sunflowers in the trunk yet." I get in my car, leave my sister's place immediately, and haul back to my house. It takes me about 3 hours to get there, and the whole time, I'm just praying. She didn't key the paint or crack a window. I pull into my driveway at midnight, and I wish I was exaggerating when I say it looked like my car had been buried alive. There were flies, worms. Someone even stuck a fake plastic flamingo in. The roof mud, probably as a sick joke. And that's when I noticed something sticking out from under the windshield wiper. I brush away some of the sludge and pull out a plastic Ziploc bag. Inside it was a handwritten note that said, and I quote, "This is what happens when you disrespect HOA lawn rules. Move your vehicle." First of all, Karen, the car wasn't on the grass, not even touching it. I have a security camera that shows the tire was a solid 5 inches from the edge of the lawn line. Second, who does this? This isn't enforcing HOA rules. This is a mud-based hate crime. Good thing I had already called the cops. They showed up just as I was finishing reading the note. I showed them the footage, the note, everything. One officer even said, "Yeah, this isn't an HOA violation, this is vandalism." But then, just when I thought it was about to be an open and shut case, Karen walks out of her house in a pink bathrobe, filming me and the police with her phone. And you won't believe what she said. "That car is a public safety hazard. I warned him. I left 3 letters. Ask the board." The board? We don't even have a real board. It's just Karen and her friend Diane who meet once a month at Panera. And then she said something that made both officers stop cold. He doesn't even own that car. Check the plates. I think it's stolen. At that point, one of the officers actually turns to me and says, "Sir, we're going to need to verify some documents." And I'm standing there, covered in mud, next to my destroyed car, wondering, how far is this lady going to go? I hand over my paperwork, registration, insurance, everything. The officer confirms it's all clean. My name is on the title. The car is mine. I even pull up the dealership email with my purchase receipt. The officer nods, looks at Karen, and says, "Ma'am, the car is not stolen. We verified it. Please stop making false accusations." But Karen doesn't back down. She just doubles down. She screams, "Well, he's breaking HOA policy. Vehicles aren't allowed in driveways for more than 48 hours without movement. That's our rule." And that's when the you-know-what hit the fan, because I said, on camera, mind you, "Karen, where exactly is that rule written?" I read the HOA handbook last month, page to page. There's nothing about 48-hour vehicle rules. So either you made it up or you're enforcing rules that don't exist." She goes quiet, like dead silent. You ever see someone realize they just stepped on a rake mid-sentence? Yeah, that was her face. The officers told her if I chose to press charges for vandalism, I'd have a solid case. They took down the report and said I should file a claim with my insurance company, but also, this was the part that really got me. They recommended I speak to the HOA, formally, and that's when I decided, okay, if Karen's going to play HOA dictator, I'm showing up to the next board meeting with receipts. I spent the next 2 days compiling everything, footage, screenshots, a printed out version of our HOA bylaws. I even contacted 2 neighbors who told me Karen had also threatened them with fake fines. I didn't just want to defend myself, I wanted to expose her. When I walk in, the room goes quiet. Karen's already there, of course, sitting at the head of the folding table like she's about to announce a royal decree. Her sidekick, Diane, is right next to her, sipping from a wine thermos. Karen says, "Let's begin. First topic of business, unauthorized vehicles in driveways." That's when I raise my hand. Calmly, I say, "Before we start, can we go over who actually authorized this policy? Because I did some digging, and what I found was interesting. I pass out copies of the real HOA handbook, no 48-hour rule, no driveway restrictions. But then I pull out the original HOA charter, which I got from the county office. And that's when I dropped the bomb. This HOA was dissolved in 2019. We don't legally have one anymore. Karen's been acting as president of a board that doesn't exist. But before she can speak, someone at the back of the room stands up. It's Mr. Lopez from 3 houses down, and he says something that makes everyone go silent. "You guys don't know the real reason Karen started this. Fake HOA, do you? It wasn't about lawns. It was about hiding what happened on this street in 2017. You could have heard a pin drop. Mr. Lopez, quiet guy, mid-60s, usually just walks his dog and keeps to himself, had everyone's full attention. He looked straight at Karen and said it again, louder this time. They don't know what happened in 2017, do they?" I asked him, "What do you mean? What happened in 2017? Karen muttered something like, irrelevant old news, but Lopez ignored her. He pulled out a folded manila envelope and handed it to me. Inside were photocopies of code violation notices, old email threads, and a cease and desist order, all tied to the same name, Karen Whitmore, back when she tried to run a luxury pet grooming business out of her garage. According to the documents, she had been fined multiple times by the actual HOA back in 2017 for misusing residential property, violating noise ordinances, and even dumping chemical-laced water into a storm drain. So wait, Karen was shut down by the HOA? Mr. Lopez nods. Shut down, fined, and nearly sued. The only reason she didn't get taken to court is because the HOA dissolved later that year when the developer pulled out of managing the community. But Karen, she didn't forget. And when the board folded, she decided to rebuild it herself on her own terms. Karen slammed her folder on the table and screamed, "That's not true. I was protecting this neighborhood from chaos. People like him don't follow rules." She points directly at me. "And if you all want your property values to drop, then go ahead. Let people like him park whatever they want in their driveways." So at this point, people started leaving. The spell she had over the neighborhood was clearly breaking. But before I could say anything more, Diane, Karen's loyal sidekick, stood up with her purse and said something weird. "We should have burned those tapes." And then she walked out. Tapes? What tapes? I turned to Mr. Lopez, but he looked just as confused as I did. "Karen?" She was frozen, pale, like Diane had said something she wasn't supposed to say. And that's when it hit me. What if the mud on my car wasn't just some overreaction to an imaginary rule? What if it was to cover something up? Because now that I think about it, when I was washing the mud off that night, I found something odd wedged deep in the front grille of the car. I didn't think much of it at the time. It looked like some kind of old plastic chip. But what if that wasn't just debris? It's still in my drawer, black, flat, slightly warped, and it's got faded labeling on one side, Cam 3, 2017. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept staring at that thing, Cam 3, 2017, wondering how it ended up jammed into my grill under pounds of mud. I mean, who buries a 6-year-old? Surveillance tape in someone's car? Turns out it wasn't a tape. It was an old micro SD card, like the kind security cams used before everything went cloud-based. I had to dig through some of my old tech to find a USB adapter, but once I plugged it in, my jaw dropped. 1 folder, 2 folders, then Cam 3. Inside, dozens of video files, all from mid-2017, all time-stamped and all taken from the backyard of the vacant house across the street. You know, the one that's been for sale forever, but no one's ever actually moved into. I clicked the first file. The footage is grainy black and white night vision. It shows Karen and Diane dragging something across the backyard. A huge tarp, heavy. They're clearly struggling with it. I know what you're thinking, and yeah, that's exactly what went through my head too. But it wasn't that. The next file showed them unrolling the tarp behind the fence and dumping out what looked like boxes. And I recognized the logo on one of them. It was her pet grooming business. Karen had been illegally storing industrial cleaning agents and possibly hazardous waste behind an empty property to avoid detection from the HOA. Probably stuff she wasn't allowed to dump legally. And the real kicker? It shows the two of us, them digging with shovels right next to the storm drain and tossing what looked like full jugs into it. Suddenly, everything clicked. That storm drain? It's the same one that constantly backs up on rainy days. The city's even been out twice to investigate blockages, but they said it looked like chemical erosion. Karen didn't just bury a failed business, she buried a crime. And now, for some reason, that footage, hidden for years, ended up inside my car, covered in mud, after I confronted her, after I made her snap. Which means either someone wants this exposed or someone wants me silenced. I looked at the clock. It was almost midnight. No one should be visiting. I peeked through the peephole. No one was there. And guess what they left on my doorstep? It was a photo of my car before the mud, taken from across the street, and written in Sharpie across the bottom. One sentence: "Don't dig unless you want to be buried." I must have stared at that photo for 20 minutes. The angle it was taken from, it was weird. Too low for a human, too stable to be handheld. I turned it over, blank. But something about the composition, the way it was framed, it felt intentional. So I mapped it out, if the shot was taken. From across the street, the only spot with that exact angle was, get this, the attic window of Mr. Tennyson's house. The reclusive guy at the end of the block, retired military, cameras on every corner of his property, never answers the door. No one's even sure he lives there full time. I figured, what do I have to lose? I knocked. Nothing. Knocked again. Still nothing. Just as I was about to walk away, the porch light flicked on. And then, behind the security door, a voice. You made her nervous. Good. Who are you? I asked. He didn't answer. Just said, what you've seen. It's not even the half of it. Come back after sunset, alone. And don't bring your phone. I followed instructions. No phone, no camera, just a flashlight and the SD card. He let me in. The inside of his house, packed. Floor-to-ceiling monitors, stacks of hard drives, file boxes, labeled with names and dates. It looked more like a surveillance bunker than a home. Mr. Tennyson sat me down and slid a folder across the table. Inside, copies of letters he'd written to the EPA, complaints, reports, all about improper chemical dumping in our area, dating back to 2016, all ignored. And guess whose name kept showing up? Karen and Diane. But then there was a third name, one I hadn't seen before, J. Halbridge. I asked him, "Who's that?" Tennyson said. Halbridge owned the empty property across the street, the one. Karen used to stash her junk. He went missing in 2018. Karen told everyone he moved to Arizona, but no one ever confirmed it because no one ever looked. And that's when Tennyson pulled out one final thing, A still image from an old VHS tape, badly degraded but visible enough. It showed Karen, Diane, and a third person, a man standing behind a van with no license plates, nighttime, same backyard. Same year? Tennyson whispers. You want to know why she flipped out over a car in your driveway? It's not the car, it's what your car found. That SD card was in Halbridge's toolbox, the one she dumped under your bumper when she panicked. Everything made sense now. Karen didn't just bury evidence, she buried someone's entire identity. Possibly worse. And now, the only proof left was sitting in my drawer. I couldn't stop staring at those two letters. JH, it was real. The toolbox Karen tried to bury in my bumper, it belonged to Halbridge. And now I had physical proof that he hadn't just moved away. Something happened to him. Something Karen was desperate to keep hidden. Cut 2. You opening the box, inspecting tools and a torn envelope tucked inside. Inside the box, I found a half-shredded envelope, addressed to J. Halbridge, 112 Crestline Re Ard. That's the empty house, postmarked July 3, 2017. But here's the weird part. It wasn't junk mail. It was from a law firm, something about a dispute over land access and chemical rights. Yeah, that's not a thing I expected to read at 1 a.m. in my garage. Why would a grooming business owner be arguing over chemical rights? I needed answers. I pulled every file they had on Crestline Road and Halbridge's property. Turns out, J. Halbridge wasn't just some random homeowner. He was a consulting geochemist, the guy companies hire to test if land has contamination or industrial potential. And guess what his last filed report was about? Illegal chemical disposal in suburban runoff zones. Karen didn't just choose his property by accident. She used him, or tried to. And when he didn't play along, he disappeared. But here's where it gets even creepier. I found something weird in the zoning paperwork, a reference to a concrete slab extension behind Halbridge's house. But when I checked satellite images, that slab wasn't there in 2016. It appeared in late 2017. She built something back here, or buried it. I brought a ground rod scanner from my uncle's construction firm. I scanned the patch behind, the fence line, and it pinged. Something metal, something big, buried under the slab. It was a safe, an old rusted reinforced lockbox, half rotted but still sealed. I pried it loose and took it straight back to my garage. I didn't open it right away. Something told me whatever was in here, it was never meant to be found. Tennyson helped me crack it. He used some kind of homemade decoding rig, and after 15 minutes of tension so thick you could cut it, the latch snapped. Inside? 2 things, a flash drive labeled "Do Not Show HOA," a stained notebook with pages and pages of handwritten notes, Halbridge's handwriting. And the first line on page 1? Karen threatened to poison my dog if I filed the report. She knew what he was going to do. She knew he had evidence. And now I have it. It contained videos, voice memos, even a full-scanned copy of the EPA complaint Halbridge tried to submit before he vanished. It outlined everything: dates, coordinates, chemical names, witness accounts. One file even had a recorded voicemail out of Karen screaming, Karen's voice on tape, "You think they'll believe you? I own this street. You dig into me, I'll bury you where no one will find you." My hands were shaking. I had everything. The recordings, the reports, the video proof. This wasn't just HOA nonsense anymore. This was criminal, felony-level stuff. And if I went public with it, Karen, she was done. But that's what scared me. You look out the garage window. Headlights pass slowly down the street. They don't stop, but they don't speed up either. I sat there, weighing my options. Do I go to the police? Do I leak it online, or do I confront Karen face to face and let her know I know everything? Before I could decide, I got up to grab something from the kitchen. That's when I heard it. A click. Not a phone. Not a door. A click from the side of the house. A shadow. Near the garage window. No lights, no sound. Just a tall figure moving along the side fence. I didn't want to spook them, so I killed the garage light and peered through the blinds. Someone in a dark hoodie was crouching near the trash bins, trying to pry something open. Narrator: you. I knew what they were after, the safe, or the drive, or maybe me. Cut to you speaking softly into your phone. Hey, I need someone here, now. I called Tennyson. He didn't say much, just, hold tight, I'm watching too. A small leather notebook, not mine. Old. The initials embossed in gold, D.H. Not Diane, not Halbridge, then who? I opened it carefully. Inside was a map, drawn by hand. Of the drainage system under the neighborhood, one spot was circled in red, a spot behind Karen's house. And next to it, a single line written in shaky handwriting, last chance to dig, everything ends here. The red circle sat just behind Karen's property line, overlaid on what looked like an old stormwater route, one that shouldn't exist anymore, at least not according to the city's current records. But this notebook? It was detailed, hand-sketched tunnels, unlabeled access points, and a small note next to the red mark. Locked hatch. Key is not the key. We waited until just after 3 a.m. No lights on in her house, no cameras we could see. Tennyson led me around the property line through the trees. That's when we found it. A rusted grate half buried in brush, surrounded by moss and cracked concrete. It smelled like mildew, rust, and something else. Chemical. The kind of smell that doesn't go away with time. The passage was narrow, just wide enough to crouch. Pipes ran along the walls, but some were severed. There were markings, old city maintenance tags, all dated pre-2000. But the deeper we went, the more it looked used. Scrapes on the wall, footprints in dried mud, and then we hit it. Key is not the key, the SD card. I pulled it from my pocket, the one labeled Cam 3, 2017, slid it in, click. The hatch gave a low grinding noise, then popped open about 2 inches. But the strangest thing wasn't the gear, or the blueprints on the wall. It was what we found in the center of the floor, a burned phone, melted, twisted, just enough left to see the cracked screen still glowing faintly. This isn't over. And then something clanked behind us. Metal, from the tunnel. He whispered, someone else is down here. And we both froze. Tennyson whispered, don't move. I didn't even breathe. That second light wasn't a flicker. It was steady, controlled, and whoever it belonged to, they knew we were down here. Then the beam hit us, full in the face. Tennyson shielded his eyes. I raised my hand slowly, and a voice came from the dark. Put the SD card on the ground, now. But I wasn't reaching for it. I was looking at the man behind the light. He stepped closer, lowering the flashlight just enough to reveal a face I had only seen in photos, sharp cheekbones, gray stubble, a long, jagged scar down one side of his face. Tired eyes, but not empty ones. You're Halbridge. He didn't answer at first, just stared, then nodded, slow. Used to be, not anymore. You faked your death, I asked. Halbridge looked at me like I was the one who missed something obvious. Didn't fake it. Just let them think I was dead. Halbridge stepped into the chamber fully now. His hands were empty, but he moved like someone who didn't need a weapon to be dangerous. They thought they buried the evidence down here, he said. But I was the evidence. I built this bunker to protect it. He nodded toward the wall of waterproof cases. Everything Karen dumped, I catalogued. Every threat, every violation, every attempt to erase what happened, it's all here. And I've been waiting for someone stubborn or stupid enough to dig it back up. I asked the question I'd been holding in since this started. Why? Now? Why resurface after all these years? Halbridge leaned in, voice low, because Karen's about to make the same mistake again. And this time, she's not just dumping chemicals. She's cutting a deal with a private developer, one who doesn't care what's under the soil, only what's above it. She's building? She's selling the land, the water rights, the whole neighborhood. And if she pulls it off, the contamination gets paved over. Forever. And that's when it hit me. The evidence wasn't just proof of a crime. It was leverage. It was the only thing standing between this community and a cover-up so big it could poison an entire water supply. But before I could ask another question, Halbridge froze, head tilted. He whispered, "You were followed." Halbridge, "Get behind the shelves, both of you, now." And as I held my breath, heart pounding, the hatch creaked open again, and Karen stepped inside. We could hear her, her boots clicking on the stone floor, slow, deliberate, the faint hum of something in the distance, maybe a generator, maybe the ventilation system. Cut to Karen's silhouette moving past the shelves, her voice cold as ice. "I know you're here," she said. "Don't pretend you're not." "Is she talking to us?" "No," Tennyson whispered. "She's talking to Halbridge." Karen's voice drips with disdain. "You think you can just hide? That after everything we've done, everything we've buried, I'd let you destroy it now? I told you I would take care of it." "Take care of it?" "Karen, you're still trying to control everything, the land, the people, the law, but you can't control this. The silence is deafening." Then Halbridge stepped into the faint light, his voice steady but laced with an unmistakable anger. "You lied, Karen. You lied about what happened to the evidence. You lied about me." "Halbridge, you should have stayed dead. You had your chance to walk away, and now you've got nothing left to threaten me with." "What I have left is the truth, and you can't bury that anymore. You were too greedy, Karen, and now the world will see it. Everything you've done, everything you've covered up, it's all on these files, the real files, not the ones you destroyed." She was poisoning the evidence, destroying it, right in front of us. "I couldn't let her," Tennyson hisses. "Don't move." Too late. Karen turned. She saw us, not the movement, just the shimmer of light catching on Tennyson's jacket. She smiled, that cold, calculating smile that had made my skin crawl. "The first time I met her," Karen's voice drips with malicious calm, "you should have stayed away from this. Now you'll see what happens when you dig into things you don't understand." Tennyson stepped forward, voice hoarse. "You think you can control everything with threats, with poison?" "It's not about control anymore," Karen replied. "It's about the money, the land rights, the new development. It's all moving forward, whether you're alive or not." Halbridge steps forward, standing between Karen and the rest of the group. "Not if I can help it. We're not just dealing with chemicals and land rights here, Karen. You've involved the wrong people. The kind of people who'll dig, no matter what you bury." The tension builds, a beat of silence. I knew we were getting too close. If Karen could wipe out the evidence, she would. No hesitation. But Halbridge wasn't backing down. Neither was I. And then we heard the footsteps we'd been dreading. Loud, heavy, multiple footsteps. Tennyson whispers urgently, "We need to go, now." We couldn't leave yet. Not without answers, not without stopping her for good. "Karen," he says, his voice cold, professional, "it's time. We move on the development as planned. You know what to do." Karen nods, her face turning to stone. "You'll get your land. Just make sure you take care of Halbridge and his little friends." Suddenly Halbridge steps forward, raising his hand. "Wait. Before you all think this is over, there's one thing you need to know. All of it, every last thing, is recorded. Every transaction, every illegal action, every cover-up. It's been sent to the press, the authorities, and a dozen watchdogs." The tall man laughs darkly. "You really think anyone will care? Once the development starts, the media will forget about you and your precious little files. We've already planted our people at the top." Karen smiles smugly. "And once it's done, no one will even remember you were ever here, Halbridge." Everything was in motion now. Karen's cold smile, the tall man's smug confidence, and Halbridge standing between us and a future we had no idea how to control. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. Tennyson's grip on my arm tightened, but I barely noticed. Cut to Halbridge, stepping forward. His voice is calm, but carries the weight of years of hidden truths. "You think you're untouchable, don't you? "We're more untouchable than you'll ever understand," the tall man responds, his eyes cold. "This is bigger than you and your little crusade." That's when it hit me. This wasn't just Karen anymore. She was the pawn. The tall man, the one who seemed to run everything, was the key, and he wasn't even worried. I glanced at Tennyson, then at Halbridge. We all knew it. This was the fight. "You still don't get it, do you?" Halbridge said, his tone darkening. "You think you're going to control the land, the rights, the resources. But you're not even the real players. You're just the ones moving the pieces. The people pulling the strings are above you, Karen. You're disposable, just like everyone else you've left behind." Karen's expression tightens. She doesn't. Like being called disposable, she steps forward, matching Halbridge's intensity. "You're a dead man, Halbridge. You think these threats scare me? I've spent years getting this far, getting them to trust me." She turns to the tall man. "We've got the resources. You don't have anything left to bargain with." I looked around. This was the end game. Whoever these men were, they controlled everything. Money, power, land. They were the ones who made the laws, and they were about to bury us all, just like they buried Halbridge. But Halbridge wasn't done yet. He raised a hand, signaling for quiet. Halbridge's voice was quiet, but each word carried weight. "You're wrong. You think I'm here because I have nothing to lose? No. I'm here because I've seen this game before. I know how it ends. And this time it's not just me against you, it's everyone you've ever hurt." I didn't understand what he meant at first, but then I realized Halbridge wasn't talking about us. He was talking about the people of this neighborhood, the ones who had been poisoning themselves without even knowing, the families who'd been told their water was safe, their homes were safe, while Karen and her partners were covering up every trace of contamination. Tennyson whispers in your ear, "What's he saying? He's talking like he has a plan." Halbridge turns to the men in suits. "You might think you're above it all, but you forgot one thing. The truth doesn't die just because you bury it, and you just made a mistake. You're not the only ones who can play dirty." The tall man laughs, but there's a flicker of doubt in his eyes. "You think you can outplay us with what? A few files? A couple of threats?" "No," Halbridge says with a steely calm. "I can outplay you with your own game. You never even considered that someone would be watching you. Not just your deals, your properties, your private jets. Everything you thought was untouchable. All of it's on video. Every phone call, every bribe, every contract you've signed, and every dirty deal you've made. And it's all going. Live in less than 20 minutes. Silence. I could feel the weight of Halbridge's words. There was more going on here than I'd realized. This wasn't just about stopping Karen and her people. It was about exposing an entire network, one that reached far beyond the neighborhood, far beyond the city. "You're bluffing," he says. "Am I?" Halbridge's voice is steady. "Check your phone." His face turns pale. He looks at Karen, and I see it. Fear. "Tall man. How did you—" "You shouldn't have underestimated me," Halbridge says with a grim smile. "This is what happens when you think the system is yours to control. People are watching now." Karen's face twisted in rage. "You think you've won?" "I know I've won," Halbridge says, pulling out the final card, the USB drive from the night he disappeared. "Because I've already sent it to the authorities. They'll be here soon. Your time's up." Everything had changed in a heartbeat. The smirk that had been plastered on Karen's face faded, replaced by a storm of disbelief. The tall man, he'd been so sure, so confident, was shaking now, his phone still clutched in his hand as the live stream notification buzzed again. This was real. It wasn't a bluff. "Karen, you think you've won? You think this is enough to stop us?" Halbridge calmly, "It's not just enough to stop you, it's enough to bury you." Karen, snapping, "Do you have any idea who you're dealing with? We're untouchable. You think the police will help? The press? They'll shut this down before it even gets started." Tall man, now visibly panicked. "Karen's right. You don't know what you've just triggered, Halbridge. You've just signed your own death warrant." I could feel it. The air was thick with fear, and not from us, from them. The tall man's voice wavered now, his earlier confidence gone. He tried to steady his hands, but they were trembling. He looked at Karen for reassurance, but she was already looking at Hallbridge, her eyes dark and calculating. Hallbridge, you've underestimated everyone involved in this, including me. You thought you were above the law, above accountability. But there are too many people invested in this now. Too many eyes on you. Your empire's already cracking, and once that first crack shows, the whole thing falls apart, he continued. You don't control the narrative anymore. You can't silence the truth. I wasn't sure what was happening. The tall man and Karen both seemed to be realizing they were in a losing game now, but they weren't ready to admit defeat. Not yet. Then everything changed in an instant. Detective Hayes shouting, "Nobody move! Hands in the air!" The room goes quiet. The police move with precision, guns trained on everyone in the room. And there they were. The authorities had arrived. But it wasn't just any authorities. These were the ones who had been on Karen's tail for years, and it was clear they had been waiting for the right moment to pounce. Detective Hayes stepped forward, his eyes locking onto Karen. He didn't need to say anything. His presence spoke volumes. Karen's face is ashen, and she freezes, realization setting in. Karen, voice breaking, "How? How did you know?" Detective Hayes, smirking, "We knew the moment we started digging into your financials, Karen. We knew about your ties to the developer, your cover-ups. We knew this day would come. I watched it happen, the empire she'd built, the web of lies, the years of manipulation all coming apart in front of us." But as the officers took Karen away, the tall man stood still, staring at Detective Hayes. His face twisted in fury, but he didn't move. Not yet. Detective Hayes, grinning, "You played your hand well, Hallbridge. We couldn't have gotten her without you." Hallbridge, calmly, "I didn't play a hand, I just told the truth." "Truth's all we needed," Hayes said. "But you're right about one thing. There's a lot more at play here. You're not done yet. We still need to talk." Hallbridge nods, not showing any fear. I wasn't sure what that meant, but the air was finally clearing. The weight that had hung over us for months, the fear, the uncertainty, was lifting. But it wasn't over yet. I had no idea what she'd do next. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot, but for now, we'd won. Hallbridge turns to you and Tennyson. "Hallbridge, this is just the beginning. But you've done what most people couldn't, exposed the truth." "What happens now?" Tennyson asks, voice cautious. Hallbridge, grinning, "We finish what we started." And with that, I knew this was only the beginning of something much bigger. We hadn't just uncovered corruption at the neighborhood level, we'd exposed an entire system. And now it was time to see who would try to shut it down. We stood there, watching the dust settle. It felt like the calm before the storm, even though Karen had just been taken into custody. This wasn't over. I could feel it in my bones. "Detective Hayes, you two, follow me. We need to talk." Hallbridge, with a smirk, "Guess it's not over yet, huh?" "Detective Hayes, it's far from over. Not until we take down everyone involved in this." You exchange a glance with Tennyson, both of you still processing what just happened. The truth was out, but the real battle was just beginning. We followed Hayes into a nearby office, one that had been set up for the operation. The lights were harsh, the walls bare, and there were stacks of paperwork scattered across the table. I'd never seen so much evidence in one place. But the real question was, how deep did this go, Detective Hayes? This is just the surface. Karen was a pawn, and so were the developers, the local politicians, and a few other key players. But the ones who pulled the strings, the ones who never got their hands dirty, they're still out there. Who could be worse than Karen? She was ruthless, sure, but the people she'd been working with had to be even more dangerous. Hayes pointed to a name on the map, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. Detective Hayes, with a grim expression. Westbrook. He's the one behind it all. The developers, the cover-ups, the intimidation. He's been orchestrating it from behind the scenes for years. And Karen was just the muscle he needed to keep everything running smoothly. So it was all about power and money. Westbrook had been pulling the strings for a long time, and we had just scratched the surface of his empire. Tennyson, so, what's next? We take him down too? Detective Hayes, not yet. Westbrook's untouchable right now. He's too powerful. We need more evidence, and we need to find his weaknesses. Halbridge, we have more than enough evidence. Westbrook can't hide behind his power forever. We'll find his weakness, and when we do, we'll make sure it all comes crashing down. Halbridge was right. We had the files, the recordings, the proof. Westbrook's empire wasn't as invincible as he thought. But the question was, how were we going to get to him without putting ourselves in danger? Detective Hayes, the problem is we don't know how deep this goes. Westbrook's network reaches farther than we realized. We need to get inside. We need someone who can get close to him without raising suspicion. I knew what they were thinking. If we wanted to get to Westbrook, we'd need someone on the inside, someone who could dig even deeper into his operation, get to his closest circle, someone who wouldn't be immediately suspected.